Russia has launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The reports we're getting suggest that Vladimir Putin is not just going to be securing the eastern Donbass region for peacekeeping. It is to suggest that Vladimir Putin seeks to take the entirety of Ukraine. And now we're getting some very serious rumors circulating and reporting that Vladimir Putin is threatening preemptive nuclear strikes against anyone who opposes them. I think it's a very serious rumor that we should address. I do not believe it is accurate. We have this reporting from the Telegraph. Vladimir Putin appears to threaten nuclear strikes if West launches reprisal attacks. The Russian president has warned that any attempt to interfere in the Ukraine conflict would provoke a response never seen in history. Nukes have been seen in history. It's possible he's talking about modern nuclear weapons, which have not been seen in history. There are some really scary weapons. It could be biological. It could be cyber. We don't know. But it is true. And Vladimir Putin said anyone who interferes will see something, we've never seen in history. I was certainly wrong about this to a certain degree. I think a lot of people were wrong. I don't think anybody could see this coming. There's videos on the front page of the New York Times. Explosions heard across the country. Now, you got to be careful, and I want to preface, we're going to go through a lot of what's happening right now. Before we do, I want to say I did reach out to someone a source I have from Ukraine who told me war. That's what they said, war. And they're trying to get their family out. It's not the best confirmation that I could hope for, but someone telling me that war is happening and they're from that country, then I think, look, a lot of people don't want to be involved. A lot of people are acting like it's Western propaganda. I think this is legit. I've seen more than my fair share of videos now, but it is true. It is true. Fake videos are being circulated claiming Russia is doing certain attacks. It's hard to know what's true because we are in a new era of warfare, and psychological manipulation is key in how they're going to be fighting this. So, of course, there will be fake videos, likely from the West, likely from Russia. Now, we do have we have a map showing from the New York Times, if you trust them, mind you, because the New York Times got us involved in Iraq, mind you. But this is what's being reported. Now, I can say this. Here's a map from the New York Times. I have actually seen many people reporting similar things. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. If you can, assess and fact check and do the work yourself, do what you can. But numerous reports have suggested, this is crazy. Russia moving in from the south, from the Black Sea into Odessa, moving from Crimea into Ukraine, obviously from the east, but also from Russia into Kharkiv, and what may be one of the more terrifying instances is north from Belarus. Now, I'm hearing reporting that Belarus is denying any involvement any involvement with the military operations. We know that Russia had troops set up in Belarus. There's also rumors circulating that top-level individuals in the United States are fleeing D.C. and flying to Denver and to other secure locations. I cannot confirm this, but I would not be surprised with Vladimir Putin coming out and saying, we're doing this, and that anyone who opposes us, you will face consequences never before seen in history. This is not, my friends, this is not the Middle East. This is not proxy war. This is Russia. Now, Russia may not be the most powerful country in the world, but they certainly have a massive stockpile of nuclear weapons and a powerful military. Ben Shapiro made a really great point. Right now, it seems the response from the West is sanction, sanction, sanction. And Ben Shapiro was saying Russia is not motivated by materialism. Vladimir Putin wants to rebuild the Soviet Union. He wants to rebuild the Russian Empire. China has come out now and has already threatened what is happening in Ukraine will happen to Taiwan. So something I don't normally do, but I do in times of great strife and escalation. My friends, head over to safeandreadymeals.com. Pick up your emergency food kit if you believe it's appropriate for you. I'm not, this is a sponsored spot. It helps support my company. It helps support the work I do, full disclosure. But I only ever shout this stuff out when I think there are times when it makes sense. Safe and Ready Meals, they're emergency food supplies. You've got 4-week and 3-month supplies. They're basically like it's dried food in bags. You pour it into a pot, pour some water, and you stir it up. Boom, you got something to eat. Full disclosure again, I want to say it. When you buy the stuff, you are helping support the work we do here. But I genuinely believe it is a smart thing to do. We've got a ton of this stuff. I don't think we have enough. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it makes sense for you. I'm just saying, please consider what this could mean. They're talking about gas prices skyrocketing over $100 a barrel, potentially up 50%. Who knows? Gas prices are going to skyrocket. You got to understand, this is not the Middle East. This is Russia invading Ukraine. The Baltic states are NATO allies. They're freaking out. They've been freaking out. You've got Kaliningrad, north of Poland and southwest of Lithuania. That's Russian territory, heavily militarized. And NATO is now preparing there's talks of an Article 4 meeting. NATO is going to be preparing some defensive measures, to say the least. We've got American troops staged in Poland. We've got a potential for very serious global conflict. So my Ukrainian friend messages me saying, do you think this could go global? And I hope not. And a lot of people were saying it was clickbait, it was fear-mongering to talk about World War III, because none of us believed it would get to this point. I'm going to say it one more time. If you think this is appropriate for you, and I certainly hope you consider, look, it's not even about just you. Safeandreadymeals.com. If something really does impact the global economy, you're going to see inflation. Food costs are going to be skyrocketing. It's already bad. I'm saying if it does. We're only as strong as our weakest link. So, for the sake of not just your family, but your community, seriously consider getting some emergency food, some water, some bug out bags. I hope you guys download on your phones right now. No joke. If you have not done this, download and I mean this, and I'll start with the crazy part, the entirety of Wikipedia. You can do it. There's apps where you can download all of Wikipedia. I'm not going to pretend politically it's a good thing, but if you're looking up berries, twigs, and certain, metallurgical, methodologies, it's probably fine. But more importantly, download emergency survival guides. I'm not saying you will need this stuff, but I tell you, it may come a time, excuse me, where learning how or knowing how to find clean water may be very important to you. Maybe not now. Maybe this doesn't go anywhere. But I will tell you this, considering I had been harping on about how this wouldn't happen, and I didn't think Russia would do this, I think it's fair to say things are escalating beyond what we would expect. And don't let your normalcy bias or your optimism bias hold you back from doing what you need to do to stay safe. Survival Guide. You can download an app. I would recommend downloading 2 of them, 2 or 3. I would recommend buying a burner phone, a small Android device for maybe $50 that you can put some data on and turn off. Keep it off, and then just, don't even worry about charging it, but have battery power or something available to charge it in the event you need to. I don't know where this goes. I want to say I don't think it goes towards nuclear war or anything like that, but people are obviously scared, and scared people act irrationally, and this could mean prices skyrocket. So do not wait. If this is not for you, Safe and Ready Meals, by all means. But I just really, really hope you guys do what's right by you now. I also want to mention we're very close to DC. We're within like 40 miles of DC, and I'm hearing some flights in the airs, up in the air. I don't know what's going on. It could be nothing. But I want to stress this point right here. I want to show you a few things. Vladimir Putin appearing to threaten nuclear strikes. We've got crazy stories, crazy videos of industrial control systems blowing up, or I should say industrial systems blowing up. We won't know when we're hit with cyber attacks what that will look like. So I seriously hope you are not sitting back and ignoring this. It's not time to panic. It's time to be calm, rational, and plan. I want to pull up this map right here. The other day when we were talking with Steve from Fortitude Ranch at Survival Community, I asked, do you think Putin would go as far west as Kharkiv? He said no. And I agree with him. What we were thinking was, and many people, you've got here, what I'm showing on the screen is the Donbass region, the area held by separatists. And it seemed like, Russia would move into this area to try and secure it. They would eventually move south down through Mariupol and, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, into Crimea, where Crimea is actually already controlled by Russia. I did not believe they would actually move in from Belarus and move in from the north, anywhere from the north, to be completely honest. I'm shocked by this. Look, I don't trust Vladimir Putin, but I just didn't think that he would make such a psychotic move. Now, what we're seeing in this map, all of these little explosion markers are reported attacks in Ukraine. Even in Lviv, which is far west in Ukraine, just near Poland, has reported attacks. Now this could be propaganda. What I think it might be is an attempt to confuse. So there are reports of Russian special forces operating in Kiev and other areas. These bombings may be an attempt to shock Ukraine and to confuse them and create chaos and disarray. I think that may be what we're seeing here. So let me show you some of the videos we're seeing. We have this tweet from Matolkal Help saying military equipment entering Ukraine in the video from cameras installed at the Belarusian-Ukrainian checkpoint. Senkovka, Veselovka. These are TOS-1A, at least 4 T-72B tanks, at least 8 MT-LB tractors, and Ural truck. All the equipment is marked with an O. I don't know if these videos are new. Sometimes they show videos and they claim it's something and it's not true. So this is really hard to confirm right now, but of course I'm going to be working with our news team over at timcast.com. Please help support our work if you want to assist to figure out what's true and what isn't. But I will say, these you see the circle on top, likely indicative of potential airstrikes. Meaning if there are drone strikes, airstrikes, or whatever else may come from the sky, they mark their equipment so they know what is theirs and what not to strike. It's a scary prospect. I'm hearing helicopters over my head. We are near Frederick, Maryland, so we're just outside of D.C. We get military flights coming up and over us quite often. This stuff's freaky, man, and being in the D.C. area, relatively close to DC. I mean, we're within, 40 or 50 miles of DC. We're already thinking about what we should have set up in terms of a mobile operation. We have our mobile studio. So we might even move further west, depending on what kind of news we get. But I don't want to be preemptive. I don't want to panic. This is in Ukraine. It's not happening here in DC. I want to say I don't think anything crazy is going to happen. I really, really want to believe that. I don't want to panic. I don't want to overreact. But I just got to stress, man. We're not talking about Afghanistan. We're talking about Russia's direct involvement. And if this triggers, you've got Article 4 trending on Twitter. If this triggers some kind of greater global conflict, we'll probably move out further west from where we're at now. Keep operations going. We've obviously set up contingencies. I'm not saying we're going to freak out right now. I'm saying maybe in a few months. Maybe if it escalates quickly, maybe if we see very serious conflict with China, then we'll be moving. But I hope you guys are staying safe. So I'll go through some of what we have. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on all citizens in Ukraine who are able and ready to defend the country to come forward, saying Kiev would issue weapons to everyone who wants them. Reports of rocket strikes. I have this tweet here. Rob Lee tweeting, it appears an aircraft was shot down over Kiev. Haven't confirmed, don't know. But there are also images purportedly of Russian POWs. So we don't know for sure, but some reports are saying that these photos show Russian soldiers being captured by Ukrainian forces. We have this tweet from Bruce Gilley on Twitter, professor of political science and public policy at Kane University. Not familiar with who he is, but he's saying China's CCTV is running a program about how Ukraine's fate is the future of Taiwan. Over at ABC News, we have reports China calls for talks on Ukraine and OK's Russian wheat imports. We are heavily sanctioning Russia. China, exactly as predicted, is going to pick up the slack and support Russia because they know they need Russian support if they're to move in and take Taiwan. And if they do, we are dealing with war in Eastern Europe, which could spread to the Baltic states, which would involve NATO. If it gets to that point, and I don't know if it will, this means the U.S. is now directly involved in a war. Now, I don't know if Russia has the power to stave off all of NATO. Of course, it is still winter for the time being, and the question arises, Is Russia good at fighting wars in winter in Eastern Europe? And the question is, of course they are. So we don't know exactly where this will go, and we don't know what weapons exist that we don't even know about. The weapons being developed over the past 70, 100 years, you think you know, you don't, okay? What we know about in the public, like MIRVs, these are ICBMs that carry multiple warheads, nightmarish. I really do think people need to wake up to the fact that there are probably weapons and capabilities beyond anything you think you know about. You think in the past 100 years they developed nuclear weapons and they stop? They could, who knows? They could have antimatter weapons. Let's talk about antimatter weapons. Very, very difficult to produce. Antimatter, and forgive me, physicist friends, if I'm butchering this. Antimatter, when it comes into contact with matter, has a 100% energy release. It just totally obliterates itself. And theoretically, an antimatter weapon could be extremely small, but extremely powerful. And I'm not going to be able to give you the math on this one. But we've been developing, we've been producing antimatter to the best of our abilities. We contain it in magnetic fields because it can't come into contact with standard matter. And that's stuff we know about. For all we know, they've developed stable antimatter weapons, the power of a gigaton in the size of a megaton nuke. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. All I want to say is don't be surprised if these countries have capabilities beyond what we think we know. I don't think it'll just be nuclear weapons. Let me show you what we do know. If it is true that Vladimir Putin was intending to threaten nuclear weapons, I want to show you something, just the MIRV. This has been around for a long time. Multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle. Take a look at this. See if you can, the W-87MX missile. It's got more than one warhead. It carries 10 to 12. They say it's an exo-atmospheric ballistic missile capable of containing several warheads, each capable of being aimed at a different target. The concept is also invariably associated with intercontinental ballistic missiles carrying thermonuclear warheads. Have you guys seen Iron Man, the first one? In the beginning, when Tony Stark releases the Jericho, one missile goes up and it deploys a ton of missiles that pepper the mountains behind him. The funny thing is, when I watched that and he's like, behold this powerful weapon, I'm just like, that ain't nothing. I get it. The idea was that it was compact, that it was a small missile that could do a ton of damage. I'm just thinking about the silos we've got, the MIRVs that we've got. I think Russia's got twice as many nuclear weapons as we do. So in the event of any full-scale war, you ain't seen nothing. The bombs we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, nothing. The weapons we currently have are 1,000 to 1,250 times more powerful. So, I think people should be paying attention to this, please. I think people shouldn't be panicking. I think it's time for people to stand up with purpose and with focus and start thinking about what this means, what we need to do, the skills you need to build. I don't know what we can do. I mean, again, look, this is Eastern Europe. We're looking at Eastern Europe. We are not there, but rest assured, there's a really severe potential that we get roped into something and this escalates out of control. Right now I'm seeing on Twitter, people are saying no involvement. Conservatives are saying no involvement. I agree. I don't see why the U.S. should be intervening when Russia and Ukraine have been in conflict for a long time, and it's Russia's border with Ukraine. I certainly think it's bad. I certainly think we should be preparing because Russia is going through Belarus. Belarus, again, reportedly saying we have nothing to do with this, but you also have Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad is a small, heavily militarized region in Europe, north of Poland and south and west of Lithuania. I say south and west because of the shape. It's like southwest. Lithuania is worried about this. You've also got Estonia and Latvia. The Baltic states are NATO allies. Poland, very worried about this. If Russia makes any moves from Kaliningrad because he wants to, or there's an escalation, it's so easy for someone to step on a twig, there's a crack, and then everyone panics. But I don't know what's going to happen. I can only say this. Just yesterday, I was talking about 2 days ago, Steve Renee, and we were saying the reports that they're going into Kiev, that's never going to happen. We said that. I said, do you think he'll go into Kharkiv? No, he won't. Now we're getting videos. Now Putin's saying, back off. Take a look at this. Let me see if I can find this tweet. Where do we have it? Here we go. Max Sedon is the Moscow bureau chief for the Financial Times in Soviet Russia. News reports you, he says. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova on state television just now says, firstly, this is not the beginning of a war. This is very important. We are trying to prevent developments that could escalate into a global war. And secondly, this is the end of the war. You see, Russia's perspective on this is that there was a legitimate Ukrainian government. Yanukovych was president. I was in Kiev in 2014 watching all this begin with the Euromaidan protests. Yanukovych was ousted, fled to Russia. You then get Zelensky, this president. He is viewed by Russia as a Western puppet. So as far as Russia's concerned, the U.S. has already used manipulative, propagandistic tactics to take the country. That means NATO will move in. This is why Russia invades Crimea. The conflict has been ongoing. There has been war in the eastern region. Their view is we're ending this now. It doesn't matter what Russia thinks. It doesn't matter what the mainstream media says. War is happening. The Biden and the West will try to claim, oh, Russia started this. It's a conflict between two great powers. The West is certainly way more powerful than Russia. But Russia is, man, under Vladimir Putin, I think they're dangerous. Now, could it be that from Kaliningrad you see militarization? We've been seeing this for years. I've talked to people on the ground in Lithuania. I've talked to locals there who say they're scared because there's been a military buildup in Kaliningrad. I mean, look at this. People need to realize that there is a piece of Russia. There's Russian territory north of Poland. Okay, you've got Lithuania to the east, then Belarus, then Moscow. Very, very serious potential for expanded conflict. And what might happen if China makes a move into Taiwan? The U.S. will be drawn into, well, I shouldn't say the U.S., but there will be war in Eastern Europe for, Ukraine's large. War in the Pacific. If the U.S. is supplying weapons to the Ukrainians or the Baltic states, do you think Russia or China are going to sit back and just be like, this is fine? So what happened in World War II? The U.S. didn't want to get involved, but Germany declared war on us. Japan bombed us. Why? Financial reasons, material reasons. We were supplying weapons to their enemies. So they decided, preemptive strike. Hit them hard, hit them fast, so that we can shut this down. Let me tell you, that was a big mistake. Ain't nobody's coming into the United States. We got a gun behind every blade of grass. Now, the thing that scares me about all of this is the division. The Achilles heel of the U.S. is the culture war. And it's a reality. It absolutely is. Are any of these purple-haired individuals going to be enlisting and joining the army and defending the Baltic states as Russia expands? I really don't think so. Are any of the people who are conservative or Trump supporters who refuse to be vaccinated, who have been kicked out of the military, going to be fighting? They've been kicked out. We're in trouble, man. This is scary stuff. I hope it ends with just Russia saying, we take Ukraine. I don't like it. I don't like that they're doing it. But I don't want World War III. What do you do? I mean, they're moving. There's reports of attacks even in the west of Ukraine. Do we just let Ukraine be taken by the Russians? What does Russia say? Does Russia say, do we let Ukraine be taken by NATO and by the European Union and by America? People might think that it could end with just Ukraine, but this is why it doesn't. Because when Ukraine falls, there's a hard line. Let me ask you guys a question. When you went to the people, look, I'm fairly anti-intervention. I lean like 80% towards we should not be involved. I say only 20% because I'm like, things may escalate and may pull us in whether we want it to or not. But let me ask you a question. When the woke leftists come and say, we will codify the end of the Second Amendment and free speech, do you say, okay, I can live with that if it means peace? Of course not. You'll outright say, we will never live with that. What happens when Russia says, can we live with a NATO Ukraine? No, we can't. What happens when NATO says, can we live with a Russian Federation Ukraine? No, we can't. I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong. I'm saying that feeling you get about the woke trying to suspend your rights, the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, that feeling you get where you say, I refuse, is the feeling people have when it comes to war, which is why I fear it could be inevitable escalation. If Russia takes Ukraine, we may be saying we don't want to be involved, but what happens when NATO gets involved? Then the U.S. has treaty obligations. And then what? If Poland says we cannot tolerate a Russian presence on our border, then what? It's not so easy to say we just stay out of it. It's just not. It should be. And a lot of people think it might be. But the reality is sometimes when you've got an expansive force like Russia, which results in Belarus or Poland or Slovakia or Romania all being like, we won't tolerate Russian expansion. What happens if Poland says we're not going to sit back and let Russia come into our border, so we are going to be involved by choice? The U.S. can stay out, true, but eventually we get pulled in too. I fear that any direct involvement could be the annihilation of human existence, nuclear war, and it's beyond that. Bring us back to the Stone Age. But to all the people who are saying we shouldn't get involved because of that, I agree. Just keep in mind, Russia is invading Ukraine. The West, Joe Biden, his corrupt cronies were pushing all this stuff. We can be mad at all of them. I think it's fair. But the end result may be, try as we might, escalation may happen. So just think about that. I'm not I'm not condoning or condemning. I'm just saying outright, it may be coming. And I hope regardless of what you want and what you think, you have taken proper precautions. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Probably more updates on what's happening with the war. Thank you for hanging out. Please go to timcast.com, support our work. Check out safeandreadymeals.com if it's something that you think is important to you. And I'll see you all in the next segment.